On today's episode of Locked On Angels, we talk about last night's game and how the Angels just keep helping out struggling pitchers. We're going to share some things that we've seen the Angels organization do in the last couple of days. We believe it's very telling. And Statcast just released bat tracking data. And Johnny did a backflip. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to us, the Super Halo Bros, for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. Like the most recent rate said, they mostly talk about Angels baseball. Hey, it's Locked On Angels. That's why we're here. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. By the way, they gave us 5 stars, so we appreciate that. Whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your car, truck, or SUV on the road. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to keep your automobile good working condition at ebaymotors.com.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, we've been fans of this team for years. We were fans before Artie, and we'll be fans after Artie Moreno owns this team. And we're here talking Angels baseball 5 days a week, every Monday through Friday with you. It's such a pleasure to have you along with us. Thank you for taking us to school with you or on the way to work with you. We really appreciate that and love being part of your day. On today's show, Statcast just released bat tracking data. What the heck does that mean? We'll put your nerd glasses on, nerds, like I have mine on, and we'll tell you how it affects our Halos. But first, we're going to talk about last night's game, Mike. And really, there's a lot to cover, and so we will give you a full breakdown here. But there's one particular instance in this game that just really, it grinds my gears, Mike. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, Angels immediately went down 5-0 in this game. Cardinals got 2 in the second, 3 in the third off of Reid Detmers. Detmers was able to keep the Cardinals off the scoreboard and give the Angels an opportunity to get back into it. Talk about Detmers for a moment, John. 5 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, 2 walks, 7 Ks. Lots and lots of pitches up in the strike zone and very hittable. And Johnny, that seems to be the trend with the Angels starting pitchers recently. Lots of pitches up, lots of pitches left over the plate, change-ups, sliders. Reid Detmers overthrew a slider last night, which allowed the first run to score. It just seems like they're missing their spots. I don't think that they're the wrong pitch in that moment, but these pitchers the last couple of games, Tyler Anderson included, they've just been missing their spots. A lot of hits off of Detmers, Sandoval, Anderson. The only person that actually pitched really well was Soriano. John, do you think that there's some sort of, I don't know if it's a mechanical issue or if it's just a head case issue, but why are all those pitches just left up?
It's a head case issue, Mike. Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register had a really great article that came out, I want to say 2 days ago, that talked about the fact that they're still not getting strike one. Yeah. And that's what they've been preaching. And even after they had a closed door meeting, they actually fell from 29th to 30th in terms of first pitch strikes. And the pitchers admitted it's because they don't want to be hit hard. They don't want to get their stuff to be hit hard, and they don't trust their stuff. And that's the problem. And Barry Enright is really trying to hammer home that, like, hey, you guys have good stuff. Now, if you go on Fangraphs and do a little research, the stuff plus that they quantify as, the nastiness of pitches, now, the Angels aren't really in particular any good in that area. So Barry Enright has his work cut out for him. But the fact is, they're afraid to throw in the zone. And when you're, it's a head case issue because I understand that you're talking about they are throwing it in the zone and they're throwing a lot of stuff up and it's getting hit. So it's the exact thing that they're afraid of. It's just a matter of location. I think that these guys are way inside their heads, and it just shows on the mound.
Overthinking. I mean, Reid even said that. He's been thinking a lot on the mound, and last night it felt like he was thinking a lot on the mound. Down 5-0 immediately, the Angels had to crawl back into it. So Colt Tucker leads off the bottom of the third with a triple. John, we mentioned yesterday that he was hitting over 400 against Sonny Gray. He should be in the lineup, and he was in the lineup. He had 2 hits, and he scored a run. And then Shonowell singled him in, bottom 4. Willie Calhoun singled, and Pilar followed with a single, and then Logan O'Hoppe hit a 3-run home run, his third of the year, showing some pop finally, and that's needed from that bat because this lineup really doesn't have the killer instinct that it had, almost had with like Trout and Rendon in the lineup, and even with Ohtani last year.
Mike, they put him down at 6th last night instead of the 5th spot, and I know it's only 1 spot down, but I thought what you said yesterday was interesting about O'Hoppe learning how to manage a game, call a game, all of that sort of thing, and focus on his offense. It's a lot. Seems like it's a lot for him to handle right now. And so I suggested maybe he needs to go back down in the order. And so he did go down a spot. And it was fortunate that it worked out because you had Calhoun at 4th, Pilar at 5th, O'Hoppe at 6th, and he was able to get that 3-run home run. At that point, Mike, it brought the Angels back into the game and 5-5 at that point.
Yeah, they were looking really good, and hopefully they could capitalize on that. They did have a chance to take the lead in the bottom of the 6th. O'Hoppe walked with 1 out. Adele reaches on a catcher's interference. That's like I think the 3rd or 4th catcher interference that the Cardinals have had.
Well, and that's what broke Contreras' arm. It was catcher's interference. These guys are setting up way too close to the hitter.
Trying to still strike. So with 2 outs, Kyron Paris draws a walk. It was a really great at bat. I really saw a professional hitter in that moment. So that was really great. He actually had another walk later on as well. But then Shonowell struck out to end the inning. Bases loaded, John, and the Angels weren't able to do anything. Not scoring there was huge, because being 5-5, then Amir Garrett comes in and he gives up a 2-run home run, and the Angels find themselves down by 2, having to crawl back into this one. Then bottom of the 7th, Kevin Pillar singles in Taylor Ward at 7-6. And then Johnny, the 8th inning comes around and the Angels load the bases again, don't they?
Yeah, this is the problem I have with this game. And if it wasn't clear from our social media stuff, then it'll be clear to you here on today's episode. The bases were loaded with 1 out, and Jojo Romero, who has been a great reliever for the Cardinals so far this year, can't find the strike zone.
No,
Mike.
He was throwing all everything. Over the place. Yep.
He's throwing everything out of the zone. He had more balls than strikes, and he's already walked 2, and there was a Zach Neto double. So the bases, yes, were loaded. In fact, Kyron Paris got a walk on a timer violation against Romero because he was taking his time up there, really paying attention to Neto on second base. But here's the problem. Guillorme is up to bat, and they attempt a bunt squeeze play, and Neto gets thrown out at home. The reason why? Guillorme can't reach the slider that's 12 feet outside the strike zone.
He would have had to step over home plate to get his bat on that ball.
Yeah, and so this, to me, is a huge, horrible mistake from Ron Washington, because if he's the one who called for that squeeze play to try to get the runner in from third, well, you weren't paying attention to what that pitcher was doing on the mound, Wash. And in fact, you bailed out yet another pitcher, which is what the Angels have done all season. They bail out struggling pitchers. He wasn't throwing strikes. The pitch he threw for the squeeze play was not a strike. So why are the Angels doing this? Why are they calling a squeeze play on a guy who's not anywhere near the zone? Guillorme probably didn't even have to swing the bat, Mike. They could have walked in the run. So I don't understand. All it would have taken was a sacrifice fly. It would have taken something to the outfield, but they try the squeeze play, which I would appreciate the aggressive nature of a squeeze play if it weren't for this pitcher all over the place and not hitting the strike zone. Absolutely ridiculous.
I mentioned yesterday on the show, if I was the hitting coach, some of the things that I would do would be bunt a lot, move runners over. But the one qualifier that I would have for that I recognized, you recognized, and a lot of fans recognized last night is that it was, I think, my point number 2 or point number 3. Don't help out a struggling pitcher. Like take some pitches. And Guillorme was doing that. Guillorme was doing that. And then there was a call. It had to have been a call for a squeeze play, because I don't think he's going to try to do that on his own. I don't think Neto's going to run down on his own. And so like that's a read the room moment where you're over managing. And I think that happens with young guys is you're trying to get the wheels turning and get the offense going. I get that. You just had the bases loaded. However, this is a moment where I don't have Ron Washington experience, and I'm watching the game and I'm going, and this guy is struggling. Just put the bat down on the ground. I was more concerned that Guillorme would swing at the first pitch. I was more concerned he would try to make contact on the first pitch when it was like, put the bat down. Just let him throw. Stand. It's like what is it? Rookie of the Year, the old Henry Rowan Gardner, where he steps into the batter's box and he's barely in it. Right. That's what Guillorme should have done. But then this call for a squeeze was just ridiculous because you help the Cardinals out again. You help their struggling pitchers out again, and it was a terrible, terrible decision.
Yeah, it made for their third straight loss. They're 5-16 at home. So I'm sorry to everybody who goes out to the Big A hoping for a win, but they're 15-28 on the season, 13 games below 500, Mike. This is the furthest they've been all season long. And if you need to get right, well, the Angels are hosting you at the Big A, and they'll certainly help you get right. This is what they've done for the Cardinals in this series so far. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Cardinals again, 6:07 Pacific time, a little earlier of a start tonight instead of that 6:38, 6:07. Griffin Canning is going to be pitching in this one. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to play ourselves a little game called Isn't It Interesting? And Mike and I are going to share some observations that we've made about this team and its ownership coming right up.
Johnny, do you want to share the news about the new car that you're getting?
Yes. So my wife's grandparents are moved out to live near my in-laws, and they don't need their car anymore. And so we're going to be getting ourselves a new car here pretty soon. But Mike, I was thinking, if I want to spice things up a little bit, I think I need to hop on over to eBay Motors. Don't you think so?
I think that would be brilliant, John. You should check out eBay Motors. They have everything you need to maintain your vehicle, and you can level it up. So what kind of car is it?
It's a Toyota Avalon.
Okay, so how about a supercharger?
Oh, yeah. I need to get that thing moving, baby.
And maybe a roof rack?
I don't think I'll need a roof rack.
How about an exhaust kit?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be one of those loud, obnoxious cars on my Toyota Avalon. That's what I'm going to do.
and what you also need is LED headlights.
There you go. I need to, shine those brights, baby.
What's great about eBay Motors is they've got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your automobile. You'll find exactly what you're looking for. And they have the eBay Guarantee Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or you get your money back, because with eBay Motors, they care about you burning rubber, not burning cash. I love that. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your car,
I'm planning on it,
or your SUV alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply, and the eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to Johnny and U.S. customers.
I want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. It's a free, I want to tell everybody about Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program just for you to cover the biggest stories across the sports world. Brings you can't miss analysis, news, and opinions, kind of like what you get here on Locked On Angels, except for the entire sports world. No more screaming, no more yelling, no more Stephen A. Smith. Get to the show that has actual people who follow the actual teams and know what they're talking about. It's on Locked On Sports Today. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the Angels are back at it tonight against the Cardinals, trying to salvage a series. Mike, they've already lost the series, but if they can salvage a win here, it's going to be on the back of Griffin Canning, who's going to for the Angels in this one. It starts at 6:07 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
A lot of great baseball websites out there. There was the Trade Simulator. It's now a subscription base, so if you still want to use it, you got to pay for it. Yeah, and they made a comment about how it can be tough to run a free site. I get it.
That.
It's a whole lot of fun to use. So if you decide to use it, you can subscribe to it. There's baseballreference.com. I find myself on that all of the time.
Oh, yeah.
But John, the one that you introduced me to that we've talked about pretty often on this show is Statcast. Baseball Savant is a fantastic website. They recently released what's called bat tracking data.
Yeah.
And we've had pitch tracking data and exit velocity and launch angle and all sorts of data points since 2015. But this is brand new, and it opens up some insight into not only hitting, but pitching. So, John, how does this work, and how does it affect our Halos.
Yeah, there's some new features on Baseball Savant, and regarding our Angels, there's something that's really interesting, Mike, and essentially it's the bat swing speed. It's how fast guys are able to swing the bat. It's how hard they're able to swing the bat. That is now something that they can track. In fact, regarding our Halos, Joe Adell is among the league leaders in bat swing speed. He averages swinging the bat at about 76.5 miles per hour. That's currently 7th in the league. And for reference, Giancarlo Stanton is first. Surprise, surprise.
I was going to say, we're all shocked.
And he swings it, Mike, at 80.6 miles per hour. Phew. That you would your hat would blow off if he swung the bat next to you, right?
Yeah.
Juan Soto ranks 10th at 76.1 miles per hour. So you got Joe Adell kind of in the middle of those two. So that's a fun, surface level stat. But where things really get interesting is how bat speed factors into some of the other stats. It can tell us specific qualities of hitters, but it can also tell us something about pitchers as well. And I'll get into that in just a second. But Mike, let's start with the squared up percentage. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I love this stat. So a ball is squared up. I'm doing the quotations for those of you on the audio side. Squared up when it reaches at least 80% of the possible exit velocity based on bat speed and the speed of the pitch. So according to Sarah Langs of MLB, so why does this matter? Well, MLB results on squared up swings is 367 batting average, a 644 slugging, and a 56.9 hard hit rate. In other words, you're going to want to square it up.
Right. Time to square up. Right now, here are the highest percentages of swings that are squared up so far in 2024. Now, remember, the bat tracking data is only 2024.
Yeah.
And only how many weeks into the season are we? Six weeks or so. So small sample sizes, but here's some interesting stuff. Luis Arraez squares up the baseball at a 43.5% rate. Right behind him, Mike, Nolan Shawnuel, 40.9%. And then you kind of jump past those guys. Juan Soto does it 39.2% of the time. Mookie Betts does it 39% of the time. Here's the thing, though, about squaring up the baseball. Luis Arraez is actually at the bottom of bat speed among all qualified hitters. He only swings the bat at about 62.4 miles per hour. Nolan Shawnuel is also toward the bottom. His bat speed averages 66.3 miles per hour. So there is a correlation between how hard, or in the case of Arraez and Shawnuel, not hard, a hitter swings, and the speed of the pitch. So think about it this way. If you get a 95 mile an hour fastball versus Nolan's 66 mile an hour swing, because his bat speed is so low, the exit velocity he needs to reach to qualify as squared up is not actually that high. So in fact, he's only 19th percentile in exit velocity among all major leaguers at just 86.8 miles per hour. Arraez is even lower. He's 16th percentile at just 86.1 average exit velocity. So hitters are squaring up relative to their own bat speed versus the speed of the pitch that they're facing. So the good news is that they're landing for hits, which is great, but the squared up percentage really depends on how hard the guy actually swings the bat. We really should wait until the season is over before we go crazy over some of these stats. But what I can see from this stat here is that Nolan Shawnuel, he's got some Luis Arraez potential, Mike, in that he could just be a base hit machine. And we've kind of seen that from Nolan Shawnuel so far, right?
Yeah. So here's what I like about it, John. Something we can learn from this is we can see how swings change based on the count. Now, you know me, I'm a big hey, shorten up your swing and maybe choke up a little bit. Well, these stats actually help us to see if batters are doing that. So for example, Mike Trout in a 0-0 count, his bat speed is 76.8 miles per hour. His swing length is 7.6 feet.
Right.
Now, listen to this. In 0-2 counts, his bat speed, a little bit slower, 74.1 miles per hour, and his swing length is 6.9 feet. So both are a bit lower, a bit slower. So what does it tell us? It tells us that Mike Trout is shortening up in the count. So when the count moves from 0-0 to 0-2, Trout is adjusting to what is happening on the mound and what's happening at the plate. He's not remaining the same, taking long swings and not adjusting at all. It's why he's Mike Trout. One thing that you pointed out last year that we also talked about this year is that high and tight fastball that always gets Trout up on the handle, right? Or the high and away fastball that he would swing and he would miss. What you talked about on this show, and again, you talked about it this year, is that if Trout adjusts to that pitch, either letting it go into the strike zone or letting it hit above the strike zone and taking a ball, or knowing that it's coming and adjusting his swing, he's going to make contact and then the pitcher is going to have to adjust. And Trout has. He's hit a couple of home runs off of that. He's hit a couple of ground balls off of that. That's what this stat tells us. That's what's great about this stat is it shows us exactly what you pointed out on this show, that Trout's adjusting because even though he's a Hall of Famer, Trout's still going to have to adjust when he's in the batter's box, depending on the count.
And that's exactly what pitching or hitting coach Mike said on yesterday's show. He wants to see guys shorten up and adjust in different counts. So there
Let's
you
go, boys. Let's go.
You know who I'm interested to see, Mike, in how he adjusts?
Yeah.
Matt Theis. I'm going to see if he does the same loopy swing every time. So that's what I'm going to have to get into. Mike, you can actually learn some things about pitching from bat tracking. We can see how hitters are attacking our Halos pitchers based on the situation and the pitch type. For example, hitters are swinging at a speed on average of 72.5 miles per hour against Griffin Canning. Against his fastball, they swing at an average speed of 71.7, so they're not swinging as hard against the fastball. But against his slider, they're swinging harder, 2 mile an hour harder, in fact, at 73.4 miles per hour. So that means they're swinging harder at the slider. So what does that tell us? If you consider a higher bat speed as a factor in how confident a hitter is in swinging at the pitch, I think hitters are more confident swinging harder at Griffin Canning's slider. So they feel more comfortable trying to swing harder and do more damage on his off-speed stuff. Also consider the Canning slider has the highest whiff rate and K rate of any of his pitches. So a faster bat speed might see guys swinging through it more easily. They might be out in front of the slider. They might be, swinging through that slider. Again, all of this is still very early.
Sure.
And I would like to wait until the full season happens, but it is a lot of fun. And it does tell us something about how hitters respond to our own pitching.
That's important data, especially for Griffin Canning, because he has really struggled with that wipeout pitch. What's the pitch that actually can get him out of the inning or strike the batter out? He hasn't had that. They've been able to figure out what he's throwing, and it's foul ball, foul ball, foul ball. So to know that they are struggling with their confidence due to their bat speed against a certain pitch versus another one can actually give him maybe some knowledge on the mound of what he needs to do so that he can wipe these batters out instead of having to throw 5 or 6 extra pitches to get them out because they fouled off 4 of them.
Now, later this summer, Statcast is releasing bat path mapping, which is going to track the path of the bat to the ball for every single swing. This is going to be huge because that's going to give us insight into situations like Mike Trout swinging at fastballs, for example. We've all seen him struggle and be under the fastball or swing through the fastball. Well, now we're going to get a graphical breakdown of the exact path Mike Trout swinging at the fastball looks like. And that's going to really tell us a lot about which guys are struggling, which guys are succeeding. And I think it's going to be really, really informative once it comes out.
Johnny, who's the young guy on the A's that's their closer? Mason Miller, is that his name?
Yes, he's tearing it up right now.
I picked him on Prize Picks, and they had a suggestion like, will he strike out like 1.5 batters? And I was like, I'm going to go larger than that. And this guy has been striking out everybody, and I felt like a brilliant fantasy player after doing that. And
there you go. See, you didn't pick the Angels. You picked somebody.
Away from that.
Yes, don't play with your heart, my friend. Play. No. Cold and callous.
Well, Mason Miller, along with a lot of other picks that I made, helped me to be a winner with Prize Picks, and you can be a winner as well. You're not battling a bunch of sharks and pros. You're battling you and the numbers. So you just have to decide if you're going to pick more than or less than the projected stat. And you can pick between 2 and 6 players, and then you can just watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is so easy to use. If you haven't downloaded it yet, you need to do that right now, because when you do, you get a first deposit match of up to $100. Just put in our promo code LockedOnMLB. So right now, I know that maybe you're watching this in the background or maybe you're driving. Just put a little mental note in your mind, or if you have access to your phone, do this while I'm talking about this. Right now, download Prize Picks if you haven't. Set up an account, put your email in, put a password in, and make sure you save that password because we don't remember our passwords, right? You need to open up a notes page or something like that, or have it be remembered on your phone. And then when you download it, immediately go in and pick your players and then use our promo code LockedOnMLB. Does two things. One, it lets Prize Picks know that you came from Locked On Angels. And two, you get a first deposit match of up to $100. They're giving you free money to be able to play on their platform. So check out Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Mike, every now and then we like to play ourselves a little game on Locked On Angels. And today's show, we're going to play a game called Isn't It Interesting?
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
We play these games when the Angels drive us nuts. So there's probably going to be a whole lot more of a segment like this coming up where we just get really feisty and get really mad and get really frustrated.
Yep.
And so this comes from Mike and John off the air, brothers talking, texting, those types of things. That's where this segment comes from because we were both like, come on, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, let's start with this first one. Isn't it interesting that team president John Carpino was watching the NHL playoffs in his box suite on Monday night as the Angels were playing the St. Louis Cardinals? Now let's take a look at a video courtesy of @Halos_Pain on Twitter, appropriate name.
Yep.
And they actually reached out. We had a great conversation about the Halos. And this is the video that he took. Now, if you're listening on the audio side, you'll hear it. Essentially, it's just a zoomed in video of John Carpino stuffing his face and watching the NHL playoffs. Here we go.
The crowd noise was when John Carpino shoved all the nachos in his
Yes, that was them cheering for him. Mike, isn't it interesting that the team president would also rather be watching something else other than the Angels? Isn't he responsible for the product that he helped put on the field as team president? And Mike, also, isn't it interesting that he's an old billboard buddy of Artie Moreno's and they first worked together in 1985? And isn't it interesting that his title went from senior vice president of sales and marketing to team president in 2009? And isn't 2009 really the last? I know they made it in 14.
Yeah.
But isn't 2009 really the last year that you could expect the Angels to get to the playoffs? Now, I know, Mike, everybody said, well, who cares? Of course he has the game on in his suite. He can do that. Blah, 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 blah. When you're the team president and you have an investment in this team, which all indications tell me that he doesn't care as long as he can have free helmet nachos in his owner's box suite. This is absolutely ridiculous that we have to suffer through the Angels and he gets to sit up on his high horse eating nachos and watching the NHL playoffs because he would rather be anywhere but there. Mike, he can watch the playoffs from home.
Yep.
He doesn't need to be at Angels Stadium.
Right.
But the fact is, he's responsible for the product that's on the field that we're all deriding right now, that we're all mad about, that we're all upset about. And here he is watching a playoff team in NHL, in the Avalanche, and wondering what it's like to have a playoff team because he's never had one except for 2014. So isn't it interesting?
Yeah, well, perception's reality. And in this case, like he's the team president, he's watching that. That gives you a great perception of his perspective of this team. I'll give you a quick example of this. So the church that I lead, I'm in charge of the church. Like I lead the church. But we have this event during the summer called Kids Blitz. It's a 3-day event, super fun. You know what? I'm at it. And I have nothing to do when I'm at it. I'm not responsible for it, but I'm at it because I care about it, right?
Right.
I'm going to say hi to people. I'm going to high five kids and I'm going to love on our leaders, all of those things. That's what somebody who's in charge should do. Not sit in your box and watch another team play in the playoffs and occasionally go, oh, 8 runs, huh? Okay, I'm going to be back to what I'm doing.
Like, hey, can I get another order of nachos up here? Come on. Hey, Mike, isn't it interesting that after Artie Moreno's appearance in the first Calling All Angels video of the season, when he got booed when he came up, they edited him out the very next day. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah. Well, and that just goes to show that Artie is involved in a lot of the specific details that happen with this team, and that Artie is listening, that Artie is paying attention. And instead of making adjustments, Artie just then tries to remove or deflect or adjust or pivot over here so that he doesn't look like the bad guy. Unfortunately, that's what bad guys do, right? That's what bad guys do.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that whenever something like this happens, when he's on the field for a ceremony and he gets booed, or he's in the video that he gets booed, there's always a response from the Angels, isn't it? And just like you said, it's pivoting, it's deflecting, it's removing the situation so there's no opportunity for him to be booed. I haven't seen him in person in forever. I know he was at spring training, but at the same time, the fact is that they always maneuver around these Artie Moreno situations. Mike, isn't it interesting that when Artie gave his Sports Illustrated interview, the article mentioned that those around him said that he's aware of the criticism that fans give him and that it actually bugs him. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it interesting? Johnny, isn't it interesting that the day after Ron Washington said that this is a win now team, he's now talking about how the team is learning and growing. He talked to Sam Blum. Sam Blum followed up with, hey, so tell me what you think about this. And he was like, well, they're growing and they're learning. And well, what about win now? That was the whole tension. And Sam did a good job of like, wait a second. You said this and now you're saying that. Isn't it interesting that Ron seems to see the situation as it actually is, but he's also towing that company line, Johnny. He can't say that it's a rebuild, but is this a rebuild? Because it certainly feels like a rebuild. And I've decided in my heart that it's a rebuild, which makes me not so frustrated with losses that we've had recently.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Mike? Win now teams aren't learning and growing.
Right.
They're already, they've been there and they're doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're a win now, they're winning because they're a win now team. They're not learning and growing. You got the wrong INGs there, my friend. And so, he can't say it's a rebuild. I totally understand that because you still have veterans on this team. You've got Mike Trout and whatnot, and they're not doing rebuild things. Like you said, they should have relievers from AA up on this team and give them a shot. And like you said yesterday, play Kyron Paris till the wheels fall off, right? And so he can't say that it's a rebuild. I understand the position that he's in, but I just hate this whole situation where Perry Manassian can't say it, Ron Washington can't say it. Gosh, and you know what? I give credit to Trent Rush on Angels Radio, because if Trent Rush wasn't on Angels Radio, I think that he would be having the conversations that we're having. I think that Trent does the best he can to be insightful, to be fair, to be relative, and to bring criticism and doubt when he can. But he also knows who signs the checks. And I'm not going to take money out of anybody's hands. So more power to Trent Rush, because I think that he does a good job walking that line. You just have to understand where he's coming from. And I think he brings a lot of insight, a lot of good things, but I think he has to walk that line. And I can't blame him for it, but I just get so tired of the Angels ownership, Artie Moreno, John Carpino, making all of their employees walk this fine line of, oh, you can't say this, but you can say that. And it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, the only show with no restrictions that talks about the Angels, right? Well, not the only show, but one of many shows that can do that. Hey, the Angels are playing the Cardinals again, 6:05 Pacific time. Griffin Kenney's on the mound. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. If you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, find today's show, get in the comment section. It's the best way you can help us out. Also, hit that like button because it puts the episode in front of other Angels fans who might not have found us yet. We've actually got some fans who said, I can't believe I just found you guys. Yeah. So you know what? You guys hitting that like button is really working, and we really appreciate that. It's the best way you can give back to Mike and I. Hey, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show, Mike?
Johnny, you mentioned it already about that conversation the Angels had about throwing strike one. So we're going to give the details of that conversation, and then we're going to follow that conversation with, if I was the pitching coach, what would I do? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Getting back in it as coaches. I love it. It's so much fun. Super Halo Bros coaches. Let's go. Hey, we are so glad that you were here with us today. Until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
Oh, sorry. I was watching the NHL playoffs. My name is Mike, and that's my brother, John.
I went the whole episode without calling him John. What else is on Carpino? Darn it. All right, friends. Thanks for being here with us, and we will see you back here on Thursday.
I think the Avalanche lost, too.
Well, it's because Carpino was watching.
was watching it.
Exactly.
His impact goes far and wide.